Hi there. Let's go over how to use Statcrunch to create a relative frequency distribution from a frequency table, as well as how to create a side-by-side bar chart. So in this question, we're given this chart of the frequencies of some different age groups for both males and females. The first thing we want to do is we want to compute the relative frequencies for both of these groups. To do that in the program Statcrunch, you're going to click on this little blue icon up here at the top right corner, and then you're going to select Open in Statcrunch. When you do that, the program opens for you automatically, and it automatically pulls in all the data. So that's a nice feature, so you don't have to spend time copying and retyping data from one thing to another. So to find the relative frequencies for the males and for the females, we're going to go ahead and create a little formula. So when we compute a relative frequency distribution, the first thing we need to know is what is the total number of things in the column. We would have to add up all the frequencies so we know what number we're going to divide each frequency by. So you can do that on your calculator, but you can also do it right here in Statcrunch. If you want to do it in Statcrunch, you're going to go up here to Data, Compute, Expression. And then you're going to click Build. When you click Build, you'll see all these functions over here on the right-hand side. If you scroll down till the S's, you will see an option that says Sum. Double-click on Sum, and the option for Sum appears up here in the expression bar. Sum just means to add up. So if we're talking about adding up the different frequencies in the male column, we can then just double-click on the male column here, and we're telling the computer to sum all the values in the males in thousands column. So I'm going to click OK, and then I click Compute. So the sum of the males is 81.2. So that's the value that I would need to divide all these different numbers by in order to find the relative frequencies. I can compute the relative frequencies now in Statcrunch. Again, I'm going to go to Data, Compute, Expression. Now this time I'm going to give the column a name. I'm going to call it Males Relative, so that later I know what column refers to what. I go to Build. So for each single row, what I want to do is I want to take the number for the frequency of that row, and I want to divide it by 81.2. So this is how I do that. I'm just working with the males right now, so I'm going to double click on the column for males, and then I'm going to hit divide by 81.2. So Statcrunch will know that for each row it's on, it's supposed to take the number in the males in thousands column on that same row and divide it by 81.2. I'm going to click OK, and then I'm going to click Compute. So in this new column, we have all the relative frequencies for the males. So you can basically just copy all of these relative frequencies and input them into the relative frequency distribution that you were asked for in Part A. Make sure that you round however is appropriate that the question asked for. Likewise, we can do the exact same things for the females. So the first thing I need for the females in order to generate the relative frequency is I need to know the total sum of all the frequencies in the female column. So I'm going to go to Data, Compute, Expression. I'm going to build an expression, and I'm going to do sum of the females. And I click OK and compute. So the sum of the female column was 75.8. To do the relative frequencies now, I'm going to go to Data, Compute, Expression. This time I'm going to go ahead and label my column Female Relative and click Build. So again, for each of the different values in the female column, I want to take that value and divide by the total of 75.8. So I build my expression by double-clicking on the females and dividing by 75.8. And I click OK, and then I click Compute. So now I have all the relative frequencies for all the different females. And I can just copy those over to the relative frequency distribution table in the question in Part B. The last thing I want to do for this question is create a side-by-side relative frequency bar chart. To do that, I'm going to go to Graph. Now it's tempting to go to bar plot because you want a bar plot for your final product. But since we want the side-by-side bar plot, and since the way we were given the data in this particular example is an already summarized for us frequency table, we actually are going to skip bar plot. We're actually going to go to chart and then columns. So graph, chart, columns. In here, I'm going to select the two columns that I want to graph. So this is a relative frequency distribution bar chart. So I'm going to choose males relative and females relative. To select both of these at the same time, I'm just clicking each one while I hold down the Control key on the computer. Where it says row labels in, I want to select my age groups because those are the different categories that all these relative frequencies are corresponding to. Under plot, I don't want to make horizontal bars. I want to make vertical bars split. Vertical bars split. These other options down here are just for labeling your graph. You can do that if you want to, but it's not required. And then I go ahead and click Compute, and I get a side-by-side bar plot for the males and females relative frequency.